Today is February 7th, 2017. My name is John Dalton, and today it is my honor and privilege to be interviewing Jimmie Walker for the Archive of American Television in North Hollywood, California. Jimmie, we'd like to take a few minutes and get some background information on your early life. What was your name at birth?
Name at birth was James Carter Walker. So actually, it's really Jimmie Carter,
Oh,
which people think, oh yeah, Mr. Wise Guy, Jimmie Carter, knock it off. And there was a time in my existence when I worked day jobs, I did have it as Jimmie Carter before Jimmie Carter got elected.
but you weren't a peanut farmer, I assume.
No, but I did sell peanuts in Yankee Stadium,
Yeah, close
so that's
enough.
different.
So where were you born?
I was born technically in Brooklyn, but I was raised in the Bronx. All my whole, whatever, my career, whatever you want to call that, raised in the Bronx, in the South Bronx, which is, I think, in the top 5 ghetto urban areas in America. And a lot of good people have come out of there. Our biggest from my neighborhood was Tiny Archibald, the basketball player.
Does he have another name? It was just Tiny Archibald?
No, Nate Archibald.
Nate Archibald.
Nate Archibald practiced basketball all day long. He played against our church. They beat us 63 to like 59 or something like that, and he scored 60.
Wow. And could you just give me your date of birth?
Ouch!
You can just give the month and the day if you want.
6/25.
Okay, good enough. What was it like growing up in the Bronx? Describe it.
I think that you know, because everybody was the same, that made that there was no like rich people. The only one thing that was really different that I did find out, we had no white people there at all. None. And I went up to do some profile recently of my alleged life, my new movie, My Alleged Life. And there was a whole bunch of white people, and we had a lot of Hispanic people also. So we had Hispanics, and we had 2 white people in our school, Catherine Quigby and Timmy Watson. Those were our two white guys.
What were your parents' names and what did they do for a living?
James Carter Walker, which is my dad, and he worked down, and it's so funny because I watched the movie Malcolm X, okay? And my dad was a Pullman porter. And that was such a big deal in our neighborhood, to either be a Pullman porter or work for the government, like as a postal guy or something like that. That was a big deal.
It was a prestige job.
It was a prestige job, definitely, without a doubt. And my mother went through different incarnations. She was a lunchroom woman. She was, now they don't even have this anymore, a collator. That means when you have books and they have chapters, somebody had to paste the books together.
Right.
And have different chapters. And she did that, and she worked the midnight shift, and she would always bring home these little paperbacks with all these different chapter things in there. Then she became a nurse, just a PN, just practical nurse. Then she kept working at it and became an RN. And then she became a college graduate RN and actually was the head of Montefiore Hospital in their nursing department. So she really went for the gusto. She did a great job.
Having read your autobiography.
You read it?
I did read
You're
it.
the one.
I've been spending, I think everyone should read it. It's great. But your mom really came a long way, and she struggled for a while.
A long time. She had a horrible marriage.
Yes.
And throughout all of that, she survived. I mean, she was like a battered wife, which, I mean, really battered.
Right.
I mean, with broken jaws, broken noses, broken arms, all that kind of stuff. And in my neighborhood, it wasn't cool like it is now to say, we go to the police, we do this, we do that. She just like said it never happened. I fell down the stairs. It's that kind of stuff like that. And I remember it's the first time, this is actually a true story, a white guy who was a cop came to our neighborhood because she got beat so bad. And he said, Mrs. Walker, just give us the word and we will go get this guy. And my mother said, absolutely not. He's my husband. I love him. That's it. So that was a whole different, I've never seen a white guy like go, I'm with you. It's that kind of deal like that.
What traits do you think you inherited from your mom?
I don't think I have as many as I should and could. I don't have her educational thing. She really worked hard on education. She was just a great pusher, doing that whole deal like that. She did a lot of that, man. She really worked hard at getting her education. And
Well, you're a hard worker too. So.
I'm a hard worker, but at least she got to be a nurse. I'm just a guy who maybe tells a joke once in a while.
When did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I came in an era that it was right after Lyndon Johnson, and Lyndon Johnson had all these programs, for minorities and stuff like that. And so I was watching a couple of TV shows, Merv Griffin and stuff like that, and Dick Gregory, the comedian, used to come on all the time. And I said, boy, this would be interesting being a comedian. And he had a book out, the only book up until then, and I was like 19 or 20 years old, the only book I ever finally read, which is a book called Nigger. That's actually the name of a book. And he says, Dick Gregory's philosophy was, they always call me it, so when they look for me at the bookstore, let them ask for nigger. So it's that, and it's the only book I have ever really read from cover to cover up until then. And I said, maybe I could do this, maybe I could start this. And I was in a minorities college program called SEEK, Search, Evaluation, Education, and Knowledge. And so I was talking to all these guys. It was the first time, because we were just, I don't want to say party guys, just guys hanging out. We weren't doing anything, And under the Johnson administration, they said, if you go to college, which is intermediate before you actually go, to get your grades, to learn how to, because our reading and writing levels were a little shaky. They said, we'll pay you $50 a week. And I was working like for John Mansville in the mail room or something, and I was making $49 a week. So I said, well, wait a minute, I can make more money doing this. So I went to school and I did that. I worked for the the post office, and that was, I cheated on the test actually to get it. The server test, yeah. I cheated on the test and got to be in the mail thing, whatever. And they put me in the parcel post department, which was absolutely horrible. They would have like these 100-foot trucks. And me and this other guy would have to load these trucks. And I swear people put bricks in these things. And you had all night to load 2 trucks. And we worked out by Shea Stadium. Mm-hmm. And it was freezing in the winter. And I worked grave from 1 until 8. And oh, God, was it horrible.
So you knew you wanted to get out of that.
I could not do that. I could not know. That was out of the question.
Real briefly, what TV shows did you watch when you were growing up?
I watched the regular shows. I always say this and people find it kind of strange. I watched The Honeymooners, which was one of my favorite shows that no longer people even know. I watched the Phil Silver show, the Joan Davis show, those kind of things. I watched all that. And actually, when it comes to my character on my alleged TV show, Ed Norton, which is Art Carney, that was my guy.
I can see that.
That's what I said. I want to be Art Carney.
Yeah, so you go into Good Times with this background, having watched all of these classic sitcoms, with the timing, and yeah, it shows when you watch those first couple episodes. But before we get to that, can you tell me about your first time on stage doing stand-up? What was it like, and where was it?
There was a couple of different times. My first time really on stage was a sneak attack, because I said I could do comedy, but I said, you know what? I don't want to take a chance with my stuff. I had a couple of things. I said, if I take a little bit of Dick Gregory stuff, a little bit of Garth Cambridge stuff, I know this stuff works.
Right.
So I went and I borrowed material from these guys. And it's a terrible thing to say, but the first time you hear that laugh, you almost are like, oh, really? And this is going to sound terrible too. Even though you're not a musician, girls come up and start saying, wow, that was kind of good. I mean, they don't do that anymore, even though I'm better, but they don't come up anymore and say anything. But girls start whatever, and you start getting a little recognition. And then around the campus, people go, this guy's kind of funny. And you go, oh, okay. So the first time I worked, really, there's 2 different stories. I worked with a group called The Last Poets. Mm-hmm. And The Last Poets, when people say, go work with The Last Poets, you should be in this organization. And I said, poets? come on, like Edna St. Vincent Millay with the flowers and this and that. No, no, no. They said, no, you got to hear these guys. They're a little different. I said, no, okay. So I went to their little place. They had a place called the East Wind right next to the Apollo in Harlem. And it was probably about 75 seats. They had about 150 people in there. It was jammed. And I listened to these guys, and you think you have language now. This was revolutionary. I went, whoa! A lot of it was anti-black stuff in there to say, black people, we're not doing it. We're not the guys. The N-word was prevalent. Nigger came out all the time. Oh my God. And see, we didn't talk in my neighborhood hatred of nigger. We used it, but it was like a loving thing. Like, yo, nigga, what you doing, man? But these people go, niggas, you stupid. You dumb. You should not. So it was a different kind of thing. It was right around the time Malcolm X got shot. They were big Malcolm X fans here. My mother, she was still using colored at the time. Don't come down on me for using that word. She was still using colored. And when they talked about Malcolm X, he used to come on the David Susskind show.
Right.
That was a big deal. He would come on, and I would watch him, and my mother would go, he's crazy. You don't want anything to do with him. You don't want to be around him. Those are bad colored people. And Malcolm X would always say, we're not colored. We're Negro. But now since it's moved up to this and that and that. So I was never really a Malcolm X fan because my mother was not a Malcolm X fan. So I was never really into the guy until I started working with the Poets. When I worked with the Poets, he was like their thing. And he was not, my mother was indifferent toward Martin Luther King. She dug him. He was cool, but not any big. But Malcolm X was like, this Martin Luther King's kind of an Uncle Tom guy. You don't want to be begging white people for this, that, and this. So that was the first time I really had worked. And I worked, and I did some jokes, and the Poets really didn't want me on. Only a couple of guys wanted me on. So I went and totally just destroyed with just some old jokes. And then I said, boy, this is good. I like this. So I worked with them for a while, and we worked. This is always some code words they would use. They said, because there was no money involved. They'd say, hey, man, there's a benefit for Hassan Ali Rashun. You go, benefit? Yeah, we don't get paid or anything, but we go in there and do benefit because the man is trying to get them and this and that and that. So we did. I don't think they did benefits. I think I did benefits for like, God, a year and a half. Right. We would just get, and they would always call, hey man, you got to show up. And we said, could anybody have car fare, some train fare? No, man, it's a benefit. So it's always that kind of deal like that. But I got a lot of time in, so I worked with a lot of guys. I worked with Stokely Carmichael. And my one big joke about Stokely Carmichael, because he was in SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, right. And he was very much a Pan-African. That means going back to Africa with Marcus Garvey and stuff like that. And he was big into that. And I would always say to Stokely, I said, Stokely, there's a lot of white people who are in this Pan-Africanism with you. They'd like to see you go back. And he'd always say, you know what? You're just not relevant, man. You're a waste of time.
What about the African Room? Tell us a little bit about that. The
African Room, here's what happened. I was working uptown, not making any money. Somebody said, you can make some money if you went downtown. There's a place called the African Room. You should go down there because you go down there, you could go to the Village after that, and then maybe the Improv, work your way up. I said, the African Room, what's this? He said, go down there and get in the open mic. I didn't know open mic or anything like that. So I went down there, and they had this big gorilla on stage. And his eyes would do this thing. And it's the first time I had worked with like commercial acts. My act was totally black, all about the blackness. And we had people, a lot of talented people, Bette Midler, Irene Cara, David Brenner, Steve Landsberg, Al Jarreau, all those guys were working there. And I went on the first time, in my act, there's different kind of black people. So I had worked with the Last Poet black people, But then these black people down there, they were in the society. They lived in normal situation, and they weren't angry. And they were going, why is this guy so angry?
So you had to adjust.
You had to adjust to those different people don't realize there's different sets of black people. This is not just one thing. So there's the angry black people, like now we have, Black Lives Matters and stuff like that. But then there's a different Russell Simmons kind of guys out there. And that's what we had downtown. We had those kind of guys down there.
Talk about David Brenner became something of a mentor to you. Talk about his effect
David
on your
Brenner,
career.
a lot of people don't realize, David Brenner, very bright, very sharp guy, actually worked at KYW in Philadelphia as a TV producer. He hired Jessica Savage, he hired Ed Bradley, he hired Tom, what's that guy's name, who had the TV show Late Night, I forgot his name.
Tom Snyder.
Tom Snyder. He hired Tom Snyder. He won Emmys for producing documentaries and stuff like that. And David Brenner had been around. He was probably about at least 15 years older than everybody else.
Right.
And David Brenner said to me, he said, you're a very funny guy. You got the moves. You got all this stuff. He says, but this black anger thing, man, no good. He says, I'm a Jew. We got anger too. Right. We got longer anger than you got. And you need to be more commercial. And you would do better to serve your cause because you would get through rather than this angry black guy who people would not like and not want to use.
Right.
He says, become more commercial, learn how to integrate into society rather than being this, because I came from that last pause. We were not white people. Right. We were not into that. So my thing was very much not liking white people. So that's the first time we actually, hooked up on that whole situation in terms of making that change. And Brenner would sit with me and explain, it sounds like a strange thing, white lifestyle.
Right.
And as I started to do better, I had to throw this story in. Well, it was in the Village, and white girls would come up and go, hey, we like what you do, this and that and this, whatever. And you start, making your whatever. And I said to Brenner, I said, a couple of girls, man, they want to, do some stuff, but they're white, man. I can't do that. And Brenner says, Jimmie, when the lights are off, it's all the same.
So great advice from David Brenner.
Well, let me tell you this is another David Brenner story. David Brenner had money, okay? So he lived on 69th and 3rd. We lived in Spanish Harlem, we lived in whatever Harlem, I lived in the South Bronx. And it's all like a joke, but it's true. It's hard to get a cab in New York if you're black. So Brenner would always go out, get the cab, we'd run in, and everybody get the thing. Okay, we would get in the cab. Brenner says, here's what we're going to do one night. I'm going to get in the cab. You're going to get off at 69th and 3rd. I'm going to go up to Harlem. Freak the guy out. So we did that one night, and Brenner says, we're going to do that story on the Tonight Show. And you go, Tonight Show? We're not making any money. We've got nothing going. What are you talking about today? He says, I'm going to be the host, and you're going to come on the show. And you go, calm down, man. We weren't even thinking of getting on the Tonight Show at that time. Like 8 years later, he's the co-host. I'm doing the Tonight Show. He just walks by in casual and says, we're going to do that cab story tonight.
That's funny.
Whoa!
He kept his word.
I wasn't even thinking about that at that time.
He knew. Well, talk about your first time on television. Your first national exposure was with Jack Parr, but do you remember doing Joe Franklin's show before that?
Joe Franklin.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Joe Franklin was the kind of guy, he was like on, 46th and 6th, and he had like an office, like the door was open. And you walk in and you go, hi, I'm a comedian. I like to do your show. Just come on in. We have Hoffman beverages.
Matzahs.
We have whatever. Come in, sit down. You're on the show. And you have your picture, your 8x10. And he'd say, we have a very funny young man with us tonight, a guy who's great. You can see him at the Improv. he's fat, and they'd have a little music playing, and they'd just show your picture. 8 by 10 would be there for like 2 minutes, and they just play music, and you wouldn't be heard, but he would be talking to you, and just your picture hanging up there. And there would be like people standing on the outside waiting to go and do the show, and people would just walk in at any time. So and the thing with Joe Franklin that was so great, whenever you saw Joe Franklin when you did TV after that, you'd say, another one of my discoveries. And you just go, I don't think so, Joe.
Yeah, he said he discovered Barbra Streisand.
Everybody.
Too, so yeah.
Because everybody came on the show. You could just, anybody who's in this room, anybody, you could just walk in, bring an 8 by 10 and say, I do this, and come on in, sit down, and we'll shoot this.
We'll talk about how did you appearing on Jack Parr Tonight come about, and describe the experience of appearing on TV for the first time nationally.
The Jack Parr show came about this way. At that time, there was a lot of TV shows. Jack Parr, Dick Cavett, David Frost, Merv Griffin, Johnny Carson, Mike Douglas, Dinah Shore. Mm-hmm. There was a ton of shows. Being on TV was like the ultimate be-all, get-all, whatever. All those guys, this doesn't happen nowadays, all those guys had talent coordinators. All the talent coordinators would come down to all the comedy clubs, mainly the Improv in the African Room, the Village Gate, Gaslight, the Bitter End, and they don't do that anymore, but they all would come and see you. Now, I was at all these joints working for free, thank you, and and they would see me, and Brennan was on. Brennan would always say, you know, they all love me, I'm the greatest, I'm the best, I'm the this, that's the whatever, whatever. So they were all doing the shows. I said, well, I want to be on too. So all the shows passed. They said, yeah, no. So we're sitting at this funky little dive place, the Camelot, all of us, me, Bet, all the guys, Richard Lewis, everybody. And they said, man, I should be on TV. What's happening? Why am I not on? They said, yeah, you should be on. So this guy, Tom, whatever his name was, from the Jack Parr show, used to come, and he used to drink. He was a drinker, but he could drink, Tom McCormick. He could drink for free because he's a talent coordinator, so you get all free food, free drink, whatever. Right. So they said, hey, Tom, how about Jimmie Walker? No, he sucks, man. It's not funny. So Brenna and Bet and Steve Landsberg went to him at the bar and said, you're not going to drink here anymore, and you're not going to be here anymore if you don't put Jimmie Walker on the show. I got on the show.
Very cool.
And that's real, because I went up there, and the producer director eventually of the David Letterman show,
Hal Gurney was the guy. And Hal Gurney was sitting behind his desk with a pastrami sandwich and a Dr. Brown's celery soda, okay? And I walk in there, because they got me the appointment, David and those guys, and he's eating a sandwich. He says, oh, you're the guy everybody's been telling me about. Well, you know, I don't know. He says, everybody tells me you're funny. I said, well, you know, whatever. He says, well, let's see it. I said, okay, we'll go to the stage, we'll do whatever. He says, no, just do it right here. I said, what? He says, just do it right here. I know it's funny. I've been around. So he's eating a sandwich, and you guys sell it. He says, go. So I start doing my, whatever I claim that I do. I'm doing my act. And after about 2 minutes, he says, okay, you're on the show. And I was on the show. And it was the kind of thing, he says, can you be down here by 5 o'clock tomorrow? I said, yeah. He says, okay, be here. And he says to his secretary, he says, we got any more soda out there? I go, hey, man. I felt like in my mind, I'm going, this is like a big deal. I didn't say that, of course, but you're thinking, this is a big deal. So I got my friend, Marty Nadler, who later went on to produce Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, and Phil Foster, who's a comic, and who's on Laverne and Shirley, actually. He's Laverne's dad.
You're right.
Yeah.
And Phil Foster gave me advice. He says, you go out there, man, because he's a Brooklyn guy. He says, you go out there, and you go out with a big smile on your face. Let them see your teeth. That was Phil Foster. He says, you go out there, because I had him on my material. And the great thing that I had, I was on the same level as Brenner and those guys, but I just hadn't been on.
Right.
So I had more material that hadn't been shown. So Phil Foster says, you go out there with a big smile. Hi! And he says, I'm from the ghetto. Or he would say, ghetto. He says, you go, hi, I'm from the ghetto, and I'm here on the exchange program. He says, imagine what they sent up there. He says, you open that line, you'll kill. I said, all right. So I went out there, and before I did the show, everybody was like running around. It reminds me of like, it is such a great show, the Larry Sanders Show. It's just people running around doing whatever. And in that haze, and Phil's there going, Phil's shouting, remember to smile. Remember to smile. You got to smile. And you just go, Phil, I got it. I heard it. And he's just going on and on about the smile and this and that. And Jack Parr comes over. And it's just the calm in the storm. And he says, hey, everybody tells me you're funny. You just go out, relax, don't worry about it. And I'm going to bring you on and give you a big intro. And you just go, and these people laugh. I've had Lenny Bruce, I've had Godfrey Cambridge, Dick Gregory, I've had Richard Pryor, I've had all these guys. You will do just fine. You go out there. And then as soon as he left, the storm came again.
Right.
But I was not nervous or anything because I felt I was there. But it's just like people, hey man, with the thing, and then we get the thing, and you got this segment A, segment B, you got to get the thing, and you get.
Right.
So he brings me on with this great intro. I mean, just fabulous. And I walk in, I had my turtleneck on, because I love turtles, they're fabulous. I went out with my turtleneck and I said, hey, I'm from the ghetto, which got like a little titter. He says, I'm here on the exchange program. Big laugh. He says, you can imagine what they sent up there. Huge laugh. Then I just took off, man. It was like unbelievable. And so I did the show and went to the Improv. We watched it at the Improv. And we were so close. Everybody was so close. And it was one of those things where everybody was so happy. It was like, yeah, man, it's that kind of thing like that, And things started changing a little bit because of that one shot. It was that kind of deal like that. Things changed a little bit.
At the time, what was your goal? Was it to eventually be on a sitcom, or was
No,
it to become...
my goal was to be on the Johnny Carson show.
Okay.
That your goal is always to be on the Johnny Carson show. There's nothing more important, nothing more relevant, nothing more. The Johnny Carson people just were like, please stop it. Don't bother us. We got a lot of things happening, a lot of things going on. And you know what? Jimmie Walker is not one. It's that kind of deal like that. And we would walk up, to 30 Rock. When either Brenner would do it, or Bet was doing it, or somebody, and we'd be there. And Greg Tennis was the guy at that time. Later became Jim McCauley, but it's Greg Tennis. And we'd come up to root our guys on, and Greg Tennis would say, look, you guys, I don't want any hooting and hollering when your guy comes out. I don't want any yapping. I don't want to hear you guys starting applause. I don't want anything. And we had a guy, Marvin Braverman, who to this day I still think is the best comic I've ever seen. He could do everything, dialects, impressions, he had material, he had everything. And Marvin went up, this is the old days, and Marvin went up, and Flip Wilson was the host for a week. And Marvin went on, and he had a thing. This shows just the era thing. The astronaut. It was a big deal in those days. And he did this thing about the astronaut, and it destroyed. And we were leading the chair, and you could see Greg Tennis like going, she's making a noise. And so that was the thing. And we were just really happy when our guys did well. Or Bet, Bet would go on and sing Am I Blue? And it was so funny with Bet because she was a great singer and all the whole deal, but she became a fine comedian because she was a waitress at the Improv. And so it was mainly comics. And Bud would put up a waitress just to break the monotony
of
Bud
Improv,
Freeman, yeah. Bud would put up a waitress just to break the monotony of the deal.
Right.
And the comics would get mad. They go, oh, come on, man. And so they would heckle. And they would heckle her during her songs, and it would happen to all the waitresses. But then the waitresses became very funny because they had heckle lines back. They would come back and heckle. So Bet became very funny. The story with Bet, and I always tell the story. Bet was a waitress, whatever. Guy comes in one day, because you take off your apron, you run up, you sing your song, and then you go back and you become a waitress. This guy. This cat came in and said, I think you're great. He said to Bet, I think you're fabulous. He says, I would love for you to come sing at my place of business. He says, sure. What is it? He says, I'm in a place called the Continental Baths, and you would be great. You could wear a dress. We have a little 3-piece band for you to do your thing, whatever it is, and we pay you like $400 for the weekend. He says, oh my God, really? He says, yep. You come up and do the thing. Now Bud was her manager.
Right.
So she goes to Bud and she says, Bud, this weekend I'm going to Continental Baths. This guy, I think it was Mark something. I forgot his name. But anyway, says, you come up and, she says, I'm going to go sing at the baths. He says, what? He says, yeah, this guy owns a place called Continental Baths. I'm going to go sing, and it's going to be, the only bad thing is to be, like 200 or 300 guys sitting around in towels. But all right, whatever. So Bud says, excuse me, you work at the Improv, man. This is, come on. I'm managing you. I know the moves we got to make, this and that. And you're going to be here. You won't be at any Continental Baths. She says, well, Bud, I'm a waitress here, but I'm really not I'm a singer. I sang and stuff. That's the kind of stuff that I do. He says, no. You let me handle the career. I've had Woody Allen. I've had everybody here. All right. They go back and forth. And Bud says to her, you know what? If you go to the Continental Baths this weekend, do not bother coming back here. Well, need I tell you what happened? She went berserk, unbelievable. I don't have to tell you guys.
Sure.
So what happened was Atlantic Records signed her, and they put her on tour, just what they call an A&R tour, artists and repertoire. So they were selling records, but they want all the guys who went to radio stations to know who the hell it is, what they're doing, what's going on. So they said, you know what? We're going to pay for a 9-piece band. You're going to go to like Philadelphia, Boston, Baltimore, New York, whatever, Atlantic City. You're going to do your little show, whatever it is, and people will be able to see you, from the organization. So you can hire whoever you want in your 9-piece band. So Raymond Johnson was our piano player, okay? And Raymond Johnson is an old griddle vest like I am now. He's a griddle just wiped out, terrible.
Sure.
And she says, Ray, I got a chance to go on the road, and I'm going to do like these 9 cities in 10 days, and I want you to be my band leader. Ray says, I ain't going on no damn road. I've been on the road all my life. I ain't going on the road. Well, we had a backup piano player, because a lot of times Ray would go on these Broadway auditions with the girls and stuff like that, with the waitresses. And the backup piano player said, well, what the hell, I'll do it. And the backup piano player was Barry Manilow.
It just shows, the importance of following your heart, because if she had just stayed at the Improv, who knows what would have happened.
That's exactly, because Bud had to throw her out for her to go do whatever she had to do.
In those early years, how did you deal with disappointment, say, like not getting on the Tonight Show, if there was any gig that you wanted that you didn't get? How did you deal with that, and how did you stick to it?
It was tough from a standpoint of, we had a guy, Uncle Dirty, Bob Altman. And Bob Altman is one of these guys that he's done everything. You say, yeah, I flew in on Southwest on the 737, it's nice plane. He says, when I invented the 737, it was a couple of years ago, I put the first engine in there. You go, oh, really? He says, yeah, man. You say, hey, Bob, I see that Grateful Dead's coming to town. When I used to work with Jerry Garcia, he used to ask me, hey, Bob, can you teach me guitar? Can you help me out on how to do it? So he did everything. So he would come in all the time and go, yeah, I'm opening for Led Zeppelin. And, and he was, but it was kind of thing. He would always be the guy to just, anything that you go, hey man, there's a great Bruce Lee movie out now. I went to see. Yeah, when I was in Korean War, Bruce Lee, I trained him for like. It was that guy. He was so you had to get past him, and a lot of it was Brenner. Brenner would always say, "I'm going to get you on the Tonight Show. I know what I'm doing. I'm the guy. I'm the this." And Brenner would always be the guy to calm everybody down. He did that with me and Freddie Prinze and everybody else.
So you guys were a support system for each other.
Except for Uncle Dirty.
Except for Uncle Dirty. Bob Altman.
Bob Altman.
So this brings us to how did you get cast as J.J. Evans on Good Times?
It came from the Jack Parr Show. From the Jack Parr Show, these guys, Edmonds and Curly. Edmonds and Curly, very good comedy team. Their big bit was this dentist thing they used to do. Well, anyway, they travel, and at that time, we only worked in the Village. We worked on going a trip for us was like going on the East Side. That was like a little road trip, because we were on the West Side. So Evans and Curly were on the road. They went to like South Dakota, North Dakota, Iowa, this and that. So they saw my shot, and they were friends of mine, and they saw me work at the Improv, and they said, "Man, you should be doing, some more stuff." So they got me some dates on the outskirts of town, right? They did me a favor to do that. And I did another Jack Parr show. They were supposed to do warm-ups for this show along with a guy named Mike Preminger. They couldn't make the warm-ups. Mm-hmm. They said, "Why don't you get this guy, Jimmie Walker, to do it?" I said, "Well, is he any good?" Because they were doing a show called Carlucci's Department, which is really a show, and I say this every time I do an interview, it'd be a great show to do now. It's about an unemployment office and just the wacky people that come in there. And they had James Coco, Candy Azar, Jose Perez. They had a legit cast.
You're right.
I mean, these are legit people to do it. So they said, "Why don't you get Jimmie Walker to do it?" So I went in there, and it was good money. It was like $400 for the day. And you had to be there for like 6 hours just to, smooth the crowd.
And it was a CBS show?
CBS show, way over on like 57th and 35th. Way the hell over. Yeah. It's way over there. So I went over there, and I started doing my act. They didn't want you to do that. They like you to do like mingle with the crowd or whatever. And I did my act. And luckily there was some gigantic laughs. And you could see the director and the producer like going, "What the hell's going on out there?" Because they're getting ready for their show. Right. And it came to a point that they said, maybe this guy can't be with us because he may be stronger than our show.
You were showing him up.
Yeah, right. So this woman comes up to me and she says, "I've been watching you do, whatever. You're very funny." She said, "I'm a casting director for Tandem Productions." And I went, "Good for you." And I left. And she says, No. We're doing a show on the left coast, or the West Coast, called Good Times. And I said, "Yeah." She says, Esther Roll, who I did not know who that was. Right. Esther Roll is the star. She's from Maude. And
had you watched Maude at that point? Okay.
No, I had not watched Maude because Maude comes on, I think, on a Saturday night where I'm working.
That's right. Okay.
So I don't really watch Maude. And says she's doing this show, and we'd like to have you be on this show. In this business, people lie so much all the time. If I had half the lies that people tell you, I wouldn't even be sitting here. I'd be too big for you guys. I wouldn't even be sitting here. She says, "We would like to have you, on the show." And I go, "Yeah, well, let me know when it's happening." So she came in the next week. She says, "Yes, we are going to do the show, this and that, that and this. And next week I'm bringing Norman Lear with me." And I went, "Yeah, okay, good." And I didn't know who Norman Lear was. I had no idea. Norman Lear comes in, and he's there, and he watches me do my little thing. And luckily there's some big laughs. And he comes up and he says, "Welcome to the family." And I went, "Yeah, okay, thanks." And I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. So he says, we're gonna draw up a contract. We're gonna have business affairs come by and do whatever." And I went, "Who is this guy?" I'm getting my $400 for this. This is terrific. I'm good, man. What are you talking about? And I'm getting good spots at the Improv. What's this guy talking about? So I said to the guy, he said, "Give me your address. I'll send you a contract." And I said, "This guy's full of it." So I gave him the Improv, the address, because I didn't even believe that whatever. I said, Yeah, whatever. So I come in early, and Louis the cook is there. And Louis is another angry guy. He's like Raymond and everybody else, Raymond Johnson. And Louis says, "You got some mail here, man." I go, "Mail? Who the hell's emailing? I'm not emailing. Who the hell's mailing me? What's that?" And it's official, like, real thing. I go,
certified letter,
yeah, a real deal. And I said, "Oh, okay." And it's a contract from Tandem that I'm on the show. And I went, "What the hell is this?" So Bernie looks at it, he says, "It's like a contract for a show." So we had this guy who used to sit at the end of the bar, Kenny the Drunk. And Kenny the Drunk is at the end of the bar, and he's a lawyer. He has like an office on Fifth Avenue. He's like a real guy. But every night he'd come in nice and clean cut about 5:30 and just start putting down shots. And by 9 o'clock, his head was on the bar. He finished a whole fifth of whatever the hell he was drinking. And I said, "I need a lawyer or something to look at it." He said, "Well, Kenny's down there." And he was in every night. And literally, I picked his head up off the bar. And I said, "Kenny, what the hell is this?" And he put on his peepers. He says, "It's a contract." And I said, "Well, is it any good?" He says, "Yeah." And then his head went back on the bar. I swear to God, that's exactly what happened. Kenny the Drunk was there. I went, "Oh." So I said to Brennan, what do we do now?" He says, "Well, maybe you should sign it and send it back." I said, "Oh, okay." So I signed it, sent it back. Get a call at the Improv. JD Joe, who's Norman's secretary, says, "We're going to send you some tickets to come out to the coast. We're going to do some rehearsals on this show." And I went, "Rehearsals on what show?" He says, "Show Good Times. You signed on. You're in." You know, "Oh, okay." So Evans and Curley got me some dates. And I was in like Vermilion, South Dakota. I was in Fargo, North Dakota. I was doing dates. And
at any point, did you learn how important Norman Lear was at the
no,
time? At any point in this
no
process?
idea.
No, okay,
No idea who Norman
Okay.
Lear was. All I knew was Greg Tennis and Johnny Carson, and that was my TV world, man. That was all I was working for. So then I go out and I'm doing these dates, and I'm the only black guy in town. It's like a novel thing in South and North Dakota. And so I'm getting big laughs. There's chicks coming around, whatever. I get a call, and it's JD Joe. I'm in Fargo, North Dakota. And she says, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in Fargo, North Dakota." She says, "You're supposed to be at the CBS Center down here on Beverly Boulevard." I said, "What's going on down there? Why am I there?" She says, "Well, you're on a show." I said, "What am I doing on the show?" She says, "Well, you're acting on the show." I went, "Really?" She says, "Yeah, you have tickets and everything to come out." I said, "I do?" She says, "Yeah, we sent you tickets in New York. Did you get the tickets?" I go, I don't know. So she says, "Where are you now?" I said, "I'm in Fargo." She says, "We're going to send you tickets from Fargo to come out to the whatever." So I'm on the thing. I'm in the car with the other acts. This guy, Michael G. Smith, who had a record called Bluer Than Blue. And I'm bluer than blue, sadder than sad. This is the first time. He was on the show, a couple other guys on the show. I said, "Hey, guys, stop by the airport. There may be a ticket for me. I don't know. Let me see." So I stopped by the airport with these guys. And they said, "Oh, yeah, you have a ticket. You're going to Los Angeles in about 3 hours, whatever." I went, "Really?" So I go pick up my bags. And I said, "Guys, I don't think I'm going to be on the show right now. I'm going to go do this TV show." So I get off there. And Alan Manning's our producer, and this other guy, Eric Monty, who created the show. Mm-hmm. They're there. "Hey, welcome to the show. It's great. It's this, it's that." And they're talking about how great it is going to be and the thing and the thing. So they said, "We're going to put you in a hotel." I go, "I don't have to pay, do I?" So, No, we take care of it. It's cool. So I stayed at the Farmer's Daughters Motel, which is right across the street from CB.
Yeah, it's still there.
It's still there. I stayed over there, and I called my man Steve Landsberg, who was doing the Bobby Darin show, which shows you how far back this goes.
A while ago.
And I said, man, we got to do some sets. You know, we got to do some shows. I said, what's going on? He says, well, we got a place called the Comedy Store. You need to go there. So he came by, picked me up. He had just learned how to drive. And guy didn't know how to drive. The first car he learned on was a stick shift, which is the worst possible thing. So we bounce along and we go do some sets over there, and we go to Red Fox's room in Los Angeles. Could we do some sets? So the next morning, I'm back at the hotel. I'm sleeping, and it's like 9:30. There's a call. JD Joe. Hey, man, you know, we're having rehearsals and stuff, and we kind of have rehearsal at 8:30. It's kind of like a little, you know, a little late for the show thing there. You should be in the show. I go, rehearsal for what? There's a show going on. I said, did you get your sides? I said, what side? What sides? What are you talking about sides? He says, that's our script. It's downstairs waiting for you. I went, oh. So I put my clothes on. I go downstairs. The script is there. And they say, you're supposed to go across the street. So I walk across the street, get into the building. Everybody's there. Norman Lear, the network, the whole deal. And we start reading the script. And I'm reading the script, and I go, Norman's sitting next to me. I go, what is this, man? He says, this is like a show that we're doing, Good Times, a spinoff of All in the Family, Maude, whatever. I said, this is not funny at all. What are they doing? He says, well, we kind of think it's funny, you know. So I finish the thing.
So David Brenner forgot to tell you not to say those kind of things to the producer of the show.
So we finish, and we're walking around. Everybody's walking around. Hi, I'm this guy. I'm that guy. So Alan Mannix, who's the executive producer of the show, comes over. He says, you know, a lot of people work very hard on this kind of stuff. If you don't like something, you go to one of our writers who you met, and you say, maybe it's possible we could make a change or something like that. But you don't vocalize in front of everyone who's worked on this very hard that, and I said, it sucks. I said that. He says, you don't say to them, it sucks.
Right.
That doesn't work, because a lot of people are hard working on this thing, and people with a lot of television credits, and it's kind of a big deal to us.
Right. So it's your first lesson in show business. Yeah.
Yes.
Talk about how the character of James Jr. was originally conceived. Talk about, like, in the first few episodes in the pilot, what was he like in
It wasn't
early
a pilot.
on?
We didn't
Okay.
do a pilot because we were Norman Lear.
Okay, right. There was no need, right?
There was no need to do
Okay.
a pilot. It was just a slick talking kind of guy who they always say found things, and was a guy who was able to steal stuff and this kind of stuff like that. And so I would go in and just go, we need a lot more to be funny. But they said, look, we're trying to do stories, and we want to make messages and stuff like that. So the first show we ever did was my brother Ralph, played by Ralph Carter, which is an interesting story. I divert just for a minute.
Please.
Ralph Carter was in this show called Raisin when he was a little kid, okay? And it was kind of a big Broadway hit. There was a lot of
It was
people.
the musical version of Raisin in the Sun.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big deal.
Right.
So Ralph was in that, and he had won some Tonys for it.
Right.
So they wanted Ralph to be in the show. Norman saw him, and they wanted to be in the show. And Raisin said, no, he's one of our guys. Are you kidding me? No, he's not going to be in the show. So they started working on a buyout for Ralph. So as they were rehearsing, they had to have somebody come in and do his part until they got Ralph out of the contract. So they brought in, this shows you the state of black acting, Larry Fishburne.
Oh, wow.
You don't realize Ralph and Larry Fishburne are the same age.
Right.
Okay? So Larry Fishburne came in, but he came in with the understanding that Ralph was eventually going to do this part. Okay? So he said, okay, but I'll make some money for a week or two and do whatever. So as we go on, it's getting tougher and tougher to get Ralph out of this thing. So now Larry's thinking, or Lawrence is thinking, maybe I'm in this thing. maybe I got this. The day before we actually go to tape, they get Ralph. Lawrence was crushed, even though he knew that he wasn't, but it had gone so long that he thought, whatever. Now, when I see Lawrence at the gym now, I say to him, I said, do you realize how your life would have massively changed if you had gotten that part? And he's just kind of, he's not a funny guy, but he's the kind of guy who just goes, yeah.
He wouldn't have been in Apocalypse Now, that's
No,
for sure.
he wouldn't have been in that. He wouldn't have been in Pee-wee's Playhouse. He wouldn't have been in any of that stuff like that. He wouldn't have been Ike Turner. He wouldn't have been any of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as crushing as it may seem then, it was just a great situation.
Yeah, a bit of trivia. In the closing credits of the first couple seasons, it says Ralph Carter appears courtesy of the Broadway musical Raisins. I never understood that when I was a little kid.
That was to give them a little whatever.
Promotion.
Yes.
Sure. Did you base JJ, or James Jr. as he was originally called, on anyone that you knew growing up? Or?
It was based on this guy, Popo was a guy, and then the commercial guy was Ed Norton.
Right, you did mention that.
Or Art Carney. Mm-hmm. So it was based on Popo because he was kind of a jive cat. Eugene was a good guy, and then Ed Norton or Art Carney. And I look at it this way. Our cast really wants to do stories. Norman loves to do stories. I came in as a comedy kamikaze. I wanted to really just hurt people with laughs. And so anytime there was a laugh, most of the cast said, well, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do it. I said, well, I'll take it. And at the end of the day, I had like 14 big jumbo jokes in there. And being at the Comedy Store, I would go to my guys at the Comedy Store and go, what do you think about this? Is this funny? And they would say whatever they would say. And eventually it made the jokes even bigger.
Right.
So that's what I was trying to do. I think, comedy has changed so much nowadays. That's why there's reality shows, because most people can't write comedy anymore. There's no such thing. If you look at most comics now, stand-ups, they're not doing jokes. They're doing, my life sucks.
Right.
My mom was terrible. My girlfriend's awful. I'm not saying that's bad. That's just the way it is. You don't have those Rodney Dangerfield one-liners. The closest to that is probably Stephen Wright, who's doing jokes.
Right.
But nobody really wants to do jokes, and nobody writes jokes, and it's very tough to get jokes. So Norman was a leader in that bag. I was a fish out of water where I came in and started doing jokes. And he went with it, but he didn't go with it. It's a tough thing. He wasn't enthused about it.
You also had some dramatic arcs on the show. Did you feel comfortable acting?
Never. And it's the kind of thing Norman would say to me, we'd have these dramatic things. He says, now, didn't that feel good? And I go, no. Because Norman and Alan, we got along as people. Really, we did. But creatively, we were diametrically opposed. And Norman and Alan both said to me many times, she says, we beg of you, go get some acting lessons. It would really, really help you. And I said, I'm not doing it. I'm talking about the first 3.5 years. Right. Literally every month they would go. And one time they brought a guy in just to look at what I do. I said, I like what I do. That's fine. He said, would you please get some? And Norman really was that kind of guy. And we got along, and there's no problems at all. But he just hated it. And what happened was, in the second or maybe 2.5 year, I hate to say it, the laughs got so big, it was bigger than Norman Lear. And you know how big Norman Lear was.
Right.
And he just really just like said, if we could just get a couple of little acting noogies in, it would be great. It would expect, we know you like laughs, but boy, it would be so good.
Right. I mean, you became a cultural icon.
Well, let's not go too far.
I think so. In
Yeah.
the 70s, absolutely. Which does become bigger than any one producer. Was there anything that the writers ever had JJ do that you objected to, where you said this is going too far, or I don't
Never.
think he would do this? Okay.
Never. I was always, I'm the guy. See, I think comedy, and if you look at a sitcom, and even though I don't get work and they don't listen to me, but I know, I hate to say it sounds terrible, I know comedy. And comedy is somebody, in terms of sitcoms, and any major comedy, except for like a Cosby. I know it's sacrilegious to mention his name, but he's still the best guy out there. But anyway, in any major comedy other than Cosby, there has to be somebody who takes the pie. There has to be that one person who is that immediate laugh guy. And by that I mean, you look at a Mary Tyler Moore, or you look at a Jerry Seinfeld, whatever the shows are, the major shows. And there has to be that guy to go, well, we would do it, but who would be that stupid? Hey, gang! That has to be that guy. And if you don't have that guy, you don't have a comedy, except for Cosby. Every major show, The Big Bang Theory, which is a major show now, they have that guy, Jim Parsons. Two Broke Girls, they have the cook, they have the other tall, skinny girl, they have that guy. You must have that guy. That has, in my opinion, it's just me, I'm an out-of-work, low-life road comic, that, to me, has taken the black ethnic guys out because they don't want to do that. They don't want that wacky, zany, kooky cat. And you go back all the way to Lucille Ball's show. She was the girl who took the pie.
Right.
You know.
Do you think it's fear of being criticized?
Yes, without a doubt. It's a fear of being typecast, stereotyped, criticized, especially in the black ethnic thing. That's why you haven't seen it in a Hispanic show. You don't see it. You won't see it in any show. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. It's the reason you'll never see a poor black family on TV, because people go, well, we don't want it. No, that's not going to be that. You'll never see wacky guys on TV. In movies, you'll see a Kevin Hart, you know, playing a wacky, kooky guy, but not on TV. They won't allow it, and they won't allow a black family to be poor and struggling. And now it's Blackish, which is really, even though I'll say this now and I'll stand by it. That show had been out there for a long time, that concept of that show. This guy was lucky enough through Debbie Allen and those kind of guys to get the show on. All that show is what would happen with Theo if he grew up and had his own family. That's all it is. Now, he says his family is like that, and his wife's name is Rainbow, and she's a doctor and the whole deal like that. All it is Theo growing up. And it's no more than that. It's tough to get a black show on. It's tough to get a minority show on, because there's always, and a minority show has to be the Cosby Show. It has to be perfect. Our show stopped minority comedy because there was so much complaining about our show. So they never did another show like our show.
Right.
And I'll tell you this story right now. I'm the one I've done it a million times, but I'll do it again. Something's happening. Tape's going.
Go ahead. We'll finish up. Go ahead.
We had a guy on our show, and now everything has changed because people bitched about it. In our day, there were no black writers, no black comedy writers whatsoever. None. Norman Lear was begging for black writers. He wanted a black writer so bad, and he was taking tremendous heat. He had us, the Jeffersons, and Sanford and Son, and he wanted a black writer. There just weren't any qualified. There just weren't any. Nothing personal, it's just that's the way it goes. He sent out a thing to all the black colleges, North Carolina A&T, Morris Brown, Howard, whatever. If you think you can write comedy, or you think you can write my show, please write it, send it in, we will evaluate it and do whatever.
What a great opportunity.
He sent it out to all, because all the entertainment or arts departments or whatever you call those things that they have in college, they were all bitching about our show and, you know, how can this crazy JJ guy be this whatever. So he says, if you think you got something, please, please, we will look at it. So they got a guy, Michael Moy, who wrote from Carolina A&T, and he wrote a script of our show. To show you how good the script was, this never happens in sitcom. They shot the script as is, as it came in. Anybody who knows anything about sitcoms, scripts go through. I've had a friend of mine write a script for our show. The only thing left in his script was the word elevator. That was it. They completely changed.
They rewrote around the word elevator.
That was it. And to tell you the honest truth, he resold the script to what's happening. The same script because they changed it so much. But anyway, Michael Moy came in and he wrote for us, and he was tremendous. When our show went on, he went on this deal, Silver Spoons, and a couple other shows, okay? They signed him to a deal at Fox because he's such a good writer. He sat there for whatever many years, nothing happened. Cosby Show came on. He said, man, this Cosby Show is so saccharine, so sweet, so goody-goody. We want to write a show that's the opposite of the Cosby Show. Just a mean, horrible, black thing. So they went to Michael Moore because he's black. He wrote it. They looked at it. Chris Albrecht and those guys were there. Looked at it, they said, oh, man, this is sensational. But we can't do it. It says they'll kill us. Chris Albrecht and those guys get fired. As you know, at studios, people go, come, whatever. They look at what they had, stashed away. They looked at it and said, oh my God, is this funny? We can't do it. They will kill us. That generation got fired. Next guys came in, they go, man, do we love this? But the black people will destroy us. Somebody said, why don't we do it as white people? They did it. Married with Children. Supposed to be a black show.
Crazy.
Would never have worked as a black show. They would have gone insane if that was a black show.
We're gonna take a little break. Yeah.